she wanted to extract it. And here we are. It's probably 20 degrees that morning outside. She's got the heat up to 80 or 90 because, of course, the honey is not liquid. And we're hand cranking this extraction. And we have honey head to toe. And then we took all the frames out to get them cleaned by the bees. And I started getting interested in bees. The thing that really precipitated me was in 2000, was already in 2008 struggling for 4 years with Lyme disease. It had become chronic because no doctor would listen to me because I had no rash. And so I happened to be back in Santa Fe for a vacation in 2008. I'm wandering around the farmer's market. I bought all my stuff in 20 minutes. I'm still wandering around. And I go back to the beekeeper and I look at him and I say, does anyone around here do apitherapy? And he says, you know, a woman moved up here a year ago from Louisiana. And he says, it's not apitherapy, but I'm not sure what the name of it is. He gives me her number. I call her and get a series of 5 treatments before I go back to North Carolina. And my acupuncturist says, what did you do? When I returned, and I said, why do you ask? And she said, because your system is holding so much better than it ever has. So from there, I got into beekeeping, killed the first hive by my own stupidity, got one in 2009. The second year, got 2 packages. Actually, it was 2 packages, one absconded, one stayed. I was doing Langstress, did the foundation, went to the bee school. It was supposedly organic. A lot of old timers saying, we've got to change what we're doing because it's just not working. But no one really had solutions. And I have to admit, I stumbled onto small cell by accident. It was by doing cutouts and seeing the health of the hives and how well they thrived as opposed to the package, as opposed to the package bees and using foundation. I became totally enamored. I'm just so totally focused on bees and learning and being present with them that it's probably what kept me alive when I got really bad with Lyme's, is just keeping the bees. For a while I gave myself some stings, but it was that exquisite meditation of the 5 senses, of learning their behaviors, of learning the sound. And I ended up with 8 hives. I'm in the process of getting, in North Carolina, I consulted with people and said, you know, what happens if I bring these to Santa Fe? And they said, don't do it. So I gave away and sold my hives to friends that I knew that were on chemical-free land and would be committed to treatment-free. I brought 1 top bar hive and 1 Langstress with me, and I went 8 months without beekeeping, and it was probably the hardest thing I'd done. I now have, and in that time I worked with the Waldorf School and dealt with a lot of fear and anxiety on the parts of the residents there and children and parents. We came up with a permission slip, and for a year and a half, when it was a 77-degree day and low wind and the barometer was rising or not falling, and it was just one of those days to get in the hive. We got in the hive, we took out frames. The children handled the frames from 1st grade to high school. We captured drones and passed them around. It was the most wonderful experience. I have to say that's probably the greatest anxiety I've ever had, is when there's 4 kids with their heads in the top of a Langstress, breathing on them, and thank God it's perfect conditions because no one got stung. In that year and a half, we only had 1 sting. And It was a delightful experience. I'm now working with the Santa Fe Girls School, which is a middle school for girls. They have a 9-acre preserve. I've written a letter of support, and I'll be the beekeeper. They're starting a pollination sanctuary. I spent 4 months, how would it be, lobbying. And I live in a co-housing community of 20-some houses. And the bees were across the property line next door. And I spent 4 months writing proposals, rewriting proposals, talking to people, addressing people's concerns, and we finally got the bees on the property. Moved 40 feet on the property. And I've taken biodynamic training, and I am unable to get enough information. Of all the trainings I've taken, doing a day and a half with Les Crowder gave me more practical information on beekeeping, treatment-free beekeeping, and top-bar beekeeping than all the other trainings I've done. And those are probably come up to somewhere around 30 or 40 hours. I love teaching people. I particularly enjoy and delight in seeing youth connect with bees. The sad thing about North Carolina now is over the last, since 2008, many of the properties that belonged to African American families who were not, who had the kind of wealth in their land and their family, that they lost this. It's become gentrified. It's now GMO. I have taught a class in one of the rural areas. The losses are 50 to 100% now because there's no place they can put their bees that isn't next to a GMO field. Or close to schools or other places. So I do as much as I can with the energy I have.
Good for you.
Okay.
I'm Mark DeKibit, and I'm based out of San Antonio, well, it's a little city just north of San Antonio called Shirts. It wasn't one event that got me involved in beekeeping, but multiple events eventually came together. My grandfather kept bees in Africa, in South Africa. And he never treated them. They basically looked after themselves. And I recall playing with these bees, and we never worried about travails or anything else like that. And that was beekeeping to me. And a couple of years ago, an elderly lady living near us who was disabled has a vegetable garden, and that's where she lives off. And she came to me and she said, "Will you help me keep bees?" And I said, "Why bees?" She said, "Because I'm just not getting the vegetables I used to get, because the pollination's not happening." And so I said, "Yes, sure." So we helped to establish the first beehive. It was a top-bar beehive. And I started thinking about this and said, well, if she can do it, why can't I go back and do it? And so 2 years ago, I set up my own hive with local bees. It's a pet hive. It's underneath my bedroom window. They get looked after on a daily basis. I observe them. I eat my meals next to them. They're as tame as anything. They're great fun. And then I started looking around San Antonio for help. And San Antonio is dominated by one big bee club. And I phoned them up and they said, "You can join us if you have." And they started listing. And I said, "I need mentorship." And the first question was, "Well, where do you live?" And I told them, I said, "Oh, well, we don't address that area. But if you pay us, we'll come and mentor you." I went to their first meeting and it was all about poisons to put in your hive. Treatment, all about it. And I came back and I was very despondent. I went down to the local extension office and there was a new young lady that had just taken over the entomology department. And she said, "Well, I don't know too much about bees, but she said, this doesn't sound right. Let's work together on this." And so we started talking about beekeeping. And she said, "There's an interest in here." And at that stage, I was also working with the 4-H. I was doing the vet science group. And the kids were interested in vet science more for the farming side of it. And a couple of kids came to me and said, "What do you know about beekeeping?" I said, "Are you interested?" They said, "Yes." So we established a 4-H bee project. And I then started looking around and asking people about, let's join and make another club. And they said, "Well, if it's going to be like the other one, we're not interested." So another gentleman came to, who was also involved, or trying to get involved with promoting bees amongst kids and amongst the schools. So the two of us started, we set up our club. No funds, no officers, none of that bureaucracy. and we started. Well, the first meeting was November. I'm sitting with 45 members at the Bee Club. I've got one of my fellow compatriots of crime there, James, has come along. And initially all talk was we want to establish bees, and I started saying to them, because by that stage I found these group, organic bee group, just by doing internet search, I started saying to them, we're going to go treatment-free small cell. I really regressed my hive, which was the hive I bought from Houston. We regressed that down to small cell. It's not quite small cell, it's about, most of the cells are about 5.0, somewhere around there, but it's a big difference from 5.6 when I started. And it's doing very well. The local beekeepers told me it will never survive the winter. Well, guess what? They survived the winter. And I was at that stage hell-bent on keeping just one deeper brood, and everything else would be honey. And this old lady sitting next to me just laughed at me and talked about Tonka toys. So based on her advice, I had to chat to the bees, whisper to the bees, and I have 3 deeps. So that was a good challenge. The group we've got now is growing. We've decided to set up an educational bee yard, so we've got 8 hives coming in from different directions at various stages. We have one already full at small cell will be coming into the bee yard. The bee yard's actually based at the International Bat Cave Conservatory, just north of San Antonio. They've given us use of their land, and they're promoting it because they also need outreach to get their sponsorship. So they say you can put the hives wherever you want to, as many as you want to, just keep us informed of what you're doing. So the first yard is we created next week, and small cell hives my hive will go in there. I've got another 5 hives that will be coming in, and the idea is if you want to bring your hive and put it there because you live in the city and you can't do anything about it, you're welcome to. But what we've done with the kids is we've allocated kids to certain hives, and they'll be looking after the hives under supervision. What I've also done is I'm very interested in monitoring. I'm an engineer, I like to tinkle. So I'm going to my hives are under monitoring. Currently they're under just weight monitoring, but the ones in there will be under total monitoring. We're going to monitor humidity, temperature, vibration, all those things. Why? Because it's fun. It also gives us the ability to go online during the classes and look what's going on with the hives, and then talk about what our action is going to be, and then go out and do something with the hives. What else can I tell you about it? We're going to regress all the hives down to small cell during this year. The Bed County Extension Office have bought a whole lot of suits and equipment for the kids, so there's no capital outlay for them. They're going to be bringing in, promoting it. The San Antonio municipality have contacted me and saying, the second time of poisoning and killing off hives, and we don't believe in Africanized bees from the city. So they're looking for a place where they can bring feral hives that they move from out of the city. And so we said, sure, bring them along. We'll put different bee yards within this conservatory, and we're going to monitor from there.
Awesome.
Hey, so how do you monitor them?
Like I can read them in my hand.
So what, I mean, like a little camera inside, or?
They're wired up.
They're wired up. When I went into looking to how to monitor hives, I was thinking of just putting things together to try and monitor them. And I found out there are a lot of companies around the world that are busy promoting it. But I could not find information of who works and who doesn't work and everything else. So I got a bit of sponsorship, and at the moment I've got products from 3 different companies we're looking at. The fourth one, which I haven't gone down to because my knowledge of electronics is not good enough, is a community self-built open source hive monitoring, where they're monitoring weight, humidity, temperature and vibration, and they're doing it through Wi-Fi connection. Then I'm looking at a New Zealand company. I've got one of their hives in place. I've got the manual hive in place. You push a button and you get a nice New Zealand accent coming to me about the weight.
Isn't the government doing that? Isn't the government monitoring us?
No, fortunately not. They don't know about it. They also have a satellite monitoring because in New Zealand they've got a problem with theft, hive theft. So the company was set up to monitor the hives using satellite connections. I didn't go that way because I couldn't afford it. It was too expensive. There is one here in the US called Bee Solutions from Bushy Mountain selling their scales. That one is Bluetooth connection to your cell phone or computer or something like that, you've got to go to it. But what I like about it is it's collecting weight constantly. So you get a lovely graph printouts of what's going on in your hive. And you can see when the bees leave in the morning, when they come back on midday. You can see when they're bringing nectar. You can see them eating at night. You can see the vibration. You can see the weight losses going on. In fact, we had a little exercise in the last meeting where I showed the kids, said the kids, here's the graphs. Now tell me how many bees leave in the morning and when they leave. And they said they had to work out what was the average weight of the bee. They looked at the weight drop early in the morning, and they said between 8:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning, 2,500 bees left the hive based on the weight drop, approximately. Bee Solutions are also now coming into a Wi-Fi connection system, and they're also going to be monitoring humidity, temperature, and vibration. So that's coming down the line. It's actually quite a nice robust system. They've got a very interesting weighing system which actually works on a torsion bar within it, so they can tell you which direction the wind's blowing on your hive, they can tell you about hive vibrations, leading the hives, things like that. The other one I'm looking at is from England. It's called the Organically system, which is probably the most sophisticated I've found at the moment. They can show you when swarming starts based on vibrations. Now I'm looking at the different people around here to see expressions on their face. This is what they have told me. It will be set up, and I'll verify whether it's true or not.
What's it called?
Arnica, A-R-N-I-C-A.
This is stuff going on for the 20s for the
That's right.
electronics, but then at the same time, you have to learn how to observe and know that the electronics is working right
Correct.
and put all the pieces together, and this isn't what they want taught. Because you got to know the field, and that might take 10, 15, 20 years of your whole darn life.
So what's interesting about this is the Arnica group are actually into a lot of research into this. And when I started talking to them about it, they showed me documents and papers that were written in the 1800s talking about doing this. And the fact that you could tell different things on the hive based on vibration. And then in 1940, a BBC sound engineer put a whole lot of electronics together to actually monitor this. And all they're doing is they've modernized what this fellow put together in the 1940s. And they've got some very interesting papers on their website about what you can tell of what's going on in the hive based on the different characteristics that they are finding.
The only thing is you got to be able to observe and make sure everything's in line with the plants and the rotation of the wind and everything.
So this is just one part of the observation. It's not the solution. It's not our standalone on its own. It's just one part of the interesting things that we're looking at to add to the fun of bees. There's just so much to learn from them.
Mark, we're going to start calling you our information junkie.
Big one.
We're going to start calling you our information junkie.
So the
here, I don't know if you heard of broodmine here.
Yes.
This is a Christmas present. I haven't tried it yet.
I've seen the video clips on it.
Yes, basically it's a Bluetooth temperature monitor that you can place over the brood nest, and it links to an app in your phone and you can track.
The only thing is, the original books where bees can go down 100 below zero, up over 120, 130, 140 degrees temp. You got to know how the bees do it in the hive naturally on their own, what you're monitoring, and it's a whole picture thing. It's not just lab stuff sitting. You've got to be able to go out and learn how to physically work, and there's no one teaching the physical work, and they don't want to put the whole thing together. So, plus they don't want you to be able to talk in general how to interlap stuff in different stages. You actually go back and forth how things are intertwined, because they want control. And that's not what it is. It's working together so everyone can keep doing it.
This is why we set up the educational bee yard, because the hands-on practical is the most important aspect.
This is more in line with what James is doing, you know? Working more in tandem.
I can't hear.
Okay, quiet down so Bruce can hear. I'm saying this is similar to what you and James are doing, going around the world trying to put the pieces together for what's going on in all the third world countries.
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of an idea about, the bee in just a rural, poor community. A beehive can become, could be the vitamin supplement center, nutrition forum, beyond what they get normally, plus their medicinal focus in rural Africa or anywhere. You know, people that don't have the finances to do it other ways, they can get it right from their own environment. It's right. I mean, you know, you drive down to D's or you drive through the desert and these sticks are just growing out of the ground. I mean, sticks here. And this stuff comes up through the ground and through those sticks into those flowers. And you got pollen and you got nectar. I mean, that stuff's just coming out. And it happens all over the world. I mean, how weird is that? Geez, propolis, the whole thing. I mean, it's just there. And it's totally underrated. It's like totally underrated.
Yeah, keep talking, this is what the town's about. We all speaks is getting everybody talking and intertwined.
It's sprinkler like that. It's like one of my favorite things.
Just talk
I can't hear you.
Okay, so anyway, continuing on from what Bruce, what
Yeah.
he was saying, it's just like we all have this stuff inside our hives, and most people have Russian strain strap, right? Like I don't do that. I just like eat the comb. My favorite kind is the. I usually look for a comb on the end, you know, where all the honey storage is, and just before they finish capping all the things, so I can see like how much bee bread is in there. And I'm after all the bee bread. And so I look at like, most you can see little bits of orange down there. And it's never ever a frame of light colored amber honey where it's all white cappings. It's all this dark stuff, you know, and then it has all the orange bee bread on the inside. So I just cut it up, put it in some jars, you know, and then just, it's the best. I think it's the perfect food. If you ever want to lose weight fast, you can take the water and this bee bread, you know, you eat it, spit out the wax. You can live on that for a couple days, and you can lose some weight and clean out your insides. Just from your own hive. You don't have to buy any products. You don't have to extract. You don't have to process at all. Just pull it right out of your hive.
Well, how do you think when they migrated during ancient Egyptian times, with the Jewish tribes going across the desert and everything? This is what they're talking about eating and living on, because everything else was going and sculling in all the wars.
It's like the best. It's got all the B vitamins, protein, and it's got everything.
All your vitamins, minerals, I mean, everything's copied from honeybees. All medicine, all nutrition.
It's the #1 superfood on the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
May I say that what we've learned as far as the health of the body, and you can obviously see I'm not in the best health, but I'm better now than I was 10 years ago. And that's been also going along with the hives. As I've seen the illness of the bees, it has been coinciding, and I'm sorry, I'm tearing up. It's been coinciding with the healing that's been going on within myself. Not only body, but mind, soul, spirit. The thing that I wanted to point out to you, there are people out there that are just starving for information, for health, for quality of life. We have lived in this rural county, for over 30 years. I hated it. When my husband brought us there, I said, I don't want to live in this place. I came across a bridge into the city, and I had not met anyone yet. And I said, I don't want to live here. And he just looked at me like I had lost my mind. But in finding, I'm there for a reason, I'm sure. The reason we're there, we are at the lowest point that any rural county is in the state of Florida, any county. We're at the top of the bad list, we're at the bottom of the good list. Literally. And we've been this way for years to this rural county. The people are poor, they're sick. CDC kept 2 trailers in a parking lot for several months, saying they were just conducting a survey. CDC doesn't come down and conduct surveys. They're there for a reason. We do not know why. But the illness level of just the general population is horrific, unhealthy in comparison. Okay? We have people that were literally, from the time they were children, this point. Okay, they're fat, they're sick, and they're dying, and they don't really have a clue of how to help themselves. And anyone can see that they need more exercise, but exercise is almost impossible when you're so way out of proportion. So this is the journey that we're traveling. We don't know why we're there. We're trying, my husband's got a cane class. We try to get older people just to move. We try to make it fun. We try to insert humor. All these things are a wholeness that you've talked about with bees. It also translates with the health of each individual. And we're also fighting politics. I mean, I totally withdrew. We totally withdrew from our bee club because it was just useless waste of time for us. We thought we were making headway, and then all of a sudden a person from another state comes in and he says, oh, I've got to show you how I fumigate my bees. And here he comes with a homemade device to put in, what was the acid, formic acid?
Oxalic.
Oxalic acid?
Oxalic.
And it's like, I threw up my hands. I said, I'm done. I told my husband, I'm done. You know, the place where the bee club was trying to keep their hives, at the ag center, they're spraying Roundup on the mound where these beehives were. So you see the battle, you see where the battle is. If you think you've got it tough, there are places that are tough. I don't feel sorry for me because we're where we are. We're too old, and at this point, yeah, we've thought about it, just pulling up stakes and moving. But where does that leave them? And there are good people there. So you gotta do what you can do while you can do it. Don't get tired of the battle.
Okay, next person. For what they want to discuss, raise your hand.
I just moved to talk about listening to the bees, you know, with these devices, which I think are great. But I just got some cheap set of stethoscope and stick it on the side of the box. And you know, I don't know how to interpret the different times of the day, what's being said in there, but it is interesting to me to listen to these guys. It's an inexpensive way, if you're of that mindset, to maybe over time we sort of collectively understand what.
How do you use the stethoscope?
I just put it on the side of the box. And
Like we used to put our ear to the side of the box?
yeah, if your ear, well, that's great. If you can't, then you use a stethoscope. So the other thing that caught my attention was the conversation about protein levels. You know, I'm a reader of labels, and I've fed cattle and hogs and sheep. And one of the things that I discovered, this is in the 70s and 80s, was that I didn't ask questions, but the reason for soybean meal going into the mix of corn or milo was the reason to raise the protein. Okay, quickly go back to 1920s when corn had a protein level in somewhere in the mid-20s%. Now come fast forward to the late 70s through the 80s, it was 12%. Moving right along up into the 90s and early 2000s, we're at 9%. Today, go look at one of these labels on corn, shell corn or whole corn, whatever you want to call it, ground corn. I'm not going to tell you, but it's shocking. So when you go back and you look at, I think it was in the 80s when we were buying chicken whole chickens. And there was fat in the chicken. I didn't really understand it. Prior to that point, we didn't find any fat in chicken and turkey, these great gobs of fat. Well, energy turns into fat. Or you use it, or it turns into fat. It's a story. So next time you're looking at a bag of corn, look at the feed label. Those labels are they have more information on them than a lot of the foods we eat.
Okay, now I'm going to add to that, having grown up in agriculture. Corn used to have a higher level back, but original corn that you see up in the hills, unhybridized like they do on seed crops, is no bigger than the size of one of your fingers. And there's a difference between smaller with more vitamins, minerals, nutrition, more protein. Then there is the bigger you get, the less you have, and the shorter the life you have. And the bigger you are, where you can't get to the smaller medicinal plants on earth, which is the healthiest, by keeping everybody in their own localized climatic geographical area. Once you go outside that, every layer of breeding beyond transitioning in and out, which I talk about, makes for lesser health, lesser being able to eat. It makes for being forced to eat bigger plants, which is similar to like the wheat of the Sierra Madres that they modified from the original wheats that were smaller because they wanted to go bigger, like corn, where they modified it and brought the new seeds in. And the bigger you go, the shorter the life, the less nutrition, the more you have fat on your hips. And for people that have known me for years and come to meetings, I've had a few say, hey, since the last time I saw you, what did you do? Well, since June of 14 when I fell that 8 feet down, I've lost 100 pounds. But I gave up all, where I used to be fruits, vegetables, and picky on grains, no grains at all. And that's wheat, rice, barley, rye, you name it, all, plus all nuts. And I wouldn't say I don't eat it, but the almonds, they say are good for you in health books. Fine if it comes from a third world country or a place where there's no pesticides. But the almond grows with all that GMO, the stuff in the water, like with the stuff fed in the water with the corn and your other grain crops, it'll wreck your body apart. And it's less healthy. And the protein levels go down. But the smaller the bees are, like the smaller the animals are, the smaller the plants are, the higher the protein level kicks up. And that's why it's finally coming back around to eat your red medium cooked meat, because that's the B12 and 6. That is for muscle stimulation, cartilage joint, brain function. And you lose it, and going back is healthier.